I'm Maxwell DiMarco. I will be reading August, When Fall Comes Again, from Unnerving 3. A dim ray of light crept through the curtains, illuminating the darkness ever so slightly. It was morning, a new day. Winston's eyelids slowly opened to reveal his amber irises, his gaze drifting around the dim bedroom as he rose upright in his modest, twin-sized bed. Yawning, he stretched his lightly muscled arms, reaching over to his bedside table and flicking on the lamp. As the shadows faded and the light illuminated an image in his mind's eye, he was pleased to find that everything was just as it should be. Winston's light blue sheets were barely wrinkled from when he'd pulled them up over himself last night. He clearly slept like a rock. At the foot of his bed, the curtains were still drawn tight over the room's solitary window. Set beside the door, the small, metal clothes hamper was empty once again. And, in the corner of the room, always remaining out of his way, the 6 figures stood. They were all too familiar to Winston, even with their faces obscured by dark helmets and tinted visors. Still as statues, their breathing muffled and dry, they stared at him with hidden eyes. With no reason to go back to sleep, Winston got out of bed, pulled the covers neatly back over his pillow, and moved down the hall to the restroom. He could see the figures in the mirror as he brushed his pearly whites, now murmuring quietly to one another, or maybe just to themselves. Winston could never really tell. After taking a cold shower, Winston dressed himself before heading downstairs to the kitchen. Today, Winston had picked out his favorite outfit, a camo-printed muzzle tee, coupled with loose-fitting black shorts. The figures were watching Winston while he pulled on his clothes, and in turn followed him downstairs, making more noises Winston couldn't comprehend. Still, Winston paid them no mind, placing his phone to his ear as he began to prepare his breakfast. "Morning, Frankie! Good to know you're still kicking." Winston placed... "Morning, Frankie! Good to know you're still kicking." Winston placed a pan of eggs over the stovetop as he spoke. "So, ready to face another day, you old tree-hugging geezer?" "Excuse me, just who are you to call me a tree-hugger?" Frank quipped. "And if 30's the new 60, then you're right there with me, Buster." Winston laughed, shifting the pan over the burner as the eggs began to steam. "Nah, you know I'm just kidding, my man. For real, though, what have you got planned for the day?" Same stuff as usual, really," Frank stated casually. Winston retrieved a plate and spatula as he listened. "Got the new fertilizer spread out last week, so now it's just a matter of watering a big fat square of dirt and hoping that this batch of seeds has life in them. Just another day for a tree hugger, as you'd put it." Winston chuckled at his friend's words, transferring the eggs onto his plate. "Frank, I'm telling you, man, at this point it seems like a lost cause," Winston replied plainly. He exited the kitchen and sat down at his round, 2-seater dining table with his food. The figures remained standing in the kitchen behind him. How are you even supposed to know if they're growing right? We've had no point of reference for, well, damn, definitely since before our ugly mugs were brought into the world." But, of course, Frank was insistent. "Listen, Winston," he began, as he always did. "If I can pull this off, then we might actually get a chance to revitalize this stinkhole planet we're stuck on. Nature gave us plants at the beginning, but humanity beat out nature in the end. So with our modern technology, I see no reason why I can't try our hand at undoing the damage. Heck, man, in just a few years, you could be making your first non-abstract piece. I dare you to tell me that wouldn't mean anything to you." Winston let him prattle on, polishing off his eggs in the meantime. Fine, do your thing, but I won't believe it until I see it," Winston reaffirmed, sitting up and returning to the kitchen to deposit his empty plate in the sink. "And I'm talking, the moment they're fully grown, you better be sending me pictures in both spring and fall. Then don't you go thinking I won't notice you make a set of cheap plastic models of screw with me either. You know I have an eye for detail." Winston's words were stern, but his tone remained lighthearted and jovial. "All right, always good talking with you, Frankie boy. I'll check up on you tomorrow. Give us saplings my regards." Winston hung up, discarding his phone before heading back through the dining area to the living room. This time, the figures resumed following him, coming to stand behind the couch as Winston sat down heavily with a resigned sigh. On that note, let's check what good news we're showing today, Winston muttered, lifting the remote and flicking on his widescreen television. A resounding, flat tone filled the room, the screen displaying nothing but vertical bars of color. Winston's body froze up as behind him the figure's murmuring became more chaotic, frenzied. And then, with a burst of static and a surge of electricity, the screen flickered to life. Continues to advise all citizens to remain indoors until further notice. The screen showed video of a woman standing behind a square overlay of footage. The screen showed video of a woman standing beside a square overlay of footage, dressed in a short-sleeved shirt and unbuttoned black vest. Her strawberry blonde hair was peppered with hints of white, but her pale skin was devoid of any blemishes. As the murmuring behind him began to calm, Winston let out a spiteful chuckle. "And just who are they trying to fool here?" he asked, to no one in particular. "Poor Roxanne must be burning up under all that makeup. Nobody's skin has been that porcelain perfect since the early 2000s. There was a noise from behind him at that, but Winston was now entirely focused on the broadcast. As temperatures are expected to reach lethal new highs in the foreseeable future, the ozone layer officially on its last legs, we can certainly agree that this is the safest course of action. The news anchor assented, her face solemn even as she attempted to remain a removed, professional tone. If you would like to hear the rest of this story, please find Unnerving 3. Thank you for listening.